What's up, fellas? In the first video of the day, we're doing another kind of rumor roundup. Probably the last one before the trade deadline, as the deadline is now just a couple of days away on Thursday. But we're going to be going through what do we got? 6 rumors leading up to the trade deadline here, different teams, different players that could be being moved here as we get closer to what's hopefully going to be a really active trade deadline. But really quickly before we get started, if you're new here, what's up? My name is Tucker. I upload the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. I have to upload to this channel twice a day, every single day. So if that's something that you're interested in, then consider subscribing. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, and you can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's just go and get into the rumors. So first thing up is, as always, I'm going to be reading my notes here a little bit more than I typically would. The Golden State Warriors, who I think have made an appearance in almost every single one of these videos, are shopping Kelly Oubre to the surprise of literally nobody. This is a guy that they traded for in the offseason. They actually gave up, not only the pick that they gave up, which I believe is top 20 protected, but I also paid a lot of money to bring in Kelly Oubre. It's right after the Klay Thompson injury. Some people said they kind of panicked on that addition. Had a really slow start of the season, but it's been playing better lately and is pretty much, apart from Andrew Wiggins, the only contract kind of in that middle range, kind of in that 15 to 24-ish range, you can move to get kind of a real asset back in return. So, of course, he's the guy that they're looking to move to try and improve this team as they're looking to make the postseason this year in a very, very tough Western Conference. In terms of guys that they are potentially looking to get for him, the Oladipo thing apparently is not going to happen. And honestly, I question if they're going to be able to get someone that's going to help them more than Oubre in exchange for him, because, he's starting to play better. He's an expiring contract, so his value is relatively limited just because people know they're going to have to pay him a significant amount of money because there's a lot of money available in the offseason. So I understand why they're shopping Oubre, and that's one of the few avenues they have to upgrade this roster outside of trading Wiseman or the Minnesota pick. But ultimately, I think they're probably just going to end up keeping him because it's just going to be difficult to get significant value considering the fact that he is a free agent, which means that they are going to be in a position where they're going to have to really consider re-signing Kelly Oubre to a significant number in the offseason, which is a pretty scary proposition, depending on how much he potentially gets offered and is worth in the offseason. But I'm not surprised to see that they are possibly shopping him to a couple of different teams. Second rumor now is something we haven't talked about in a little bit, and that's Andre Drummond as well as LaMarcus Aldridge trades. It seems like teams like the Mavs and teams like the Heat for Aldridge and the Mavs for Drummond are having conversations with each of these teams, the Cavs and Spurs respectively. But honestly, to me, it kind of seems like we're pointed towards a buyout for one, if not both of these players. It's been well known for, in Drummond's case, a couple of weeks, that these guys are very available. And if one of these teams had found a deal that they liked, they probably would have made it, especially, with so much activity going around the league, knowing that if one team, offers something and you don't take it, then they can just go out and get another player. And then suddenly that deal isn't on the table anymore. So it kind of seems like we're approaching possible buyouts right now for both LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond. For Drummond, the rumor is if he does get bought out, it's almost guaranteed that he's going to go to Brooklyn, because of course he is. And then Aldridge would probably end up in Miami via buyout if that's the way that it went down. So the fact that it's so clear what the destination would be for either of these players if they did get bought out, again, points to me to the idea that they will end up being bought out rather than being traded. Next up now, again, related to the Miami Heat, is Kyle Lowry, who we've talked about in a lot of these different rumor videos. And last week it was basically decided they're probably not moving him. However, it appears as though the Miami Heat are one team, outside of Philly, of course, that is heavily, heavily pushing for acquiring Kyle Lowry. Just don't know if they're actually going to be able to do it, but they really want to add him to this group. Now, the interesting part about this rumor is that the Raptors are expecting a return of either Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. Now, realistically, that probably means Duncan Robinson for a couple of reasons. One, we know the Heat really value Hero. I don't think they'd be willing to give him up for a player in Lowry that, yes, is very good, but isn't expiring, and all those, kind of different things that come with that. But for Robinson specifically, he's a guy that they're going to kind of have to figure out what to do with at the end of the season. They're going to have to give him a new contract. They have kind of their own free agency plans for this offseason where they want to have a lot of cap space, and so maybe he's a guy that they look at moving in exchange for Kyle Lowry. There's pros and cons to both of that. Obviously, Lowry is a better overall player, but maybe Robinson is a bit easier to retain because he is a restricted free agent in the offseason rather than Lowry being unrestricted. Ultimately, it's a really tough decision to make, I think, honestly, if you're Miami. If I'm Toronto And I really feel like my team just isn't going to be a true, top 5 team in the East this year. Maybe this is something that I take a look at, assuming that I'm okay, getting rid of Lowry and maybe aren't really thinking about re-signing him in the offseason anyway. Ultimately, it seems like the buzz is that unless they're blown away, the Raptors are going to keep Lowry, but the specifics of this as it relates to the Heat is really, really interesting to me. Next up now, more Lonzo Ball stuff. So the Chicago Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks both reportedly really, really want Lonzo. We talked about the Clippers trying to be aggressive to go get him, but if there's other teams like the Bulls and Hawks involved here, it's much more likely that Lonzo would end up there, given the fact that they actually, have assets to trade in exchange for Lonzo, which is an issue for LA. So the rumor here is that Chicago wants to add him. I think that's an interesting fit alongside LaVine, but I'm more interested here in Atlanta because reportedly the deal that would possibly be offered here revolves around Cam Reddish going from Atlanta to New Orleans, which is interesting because Lonzo is in a fit alongside Trae Young. I kind of love, there's this weird thing where Lonzo allows Trae to play off the ball more, which I think would be a good thing for him. He's obviously really good on the ball, but you don't just want him to run every ball screen every time down the floor. While also Lonzo, kind of the ideal version of Lonzo, is this kind of, bigger defensive-oriented guard that can shoot off the ball, assuming he can still shoot well in Atlanta, that fits shockingly well with Trae, and he's young. Now, the problem with this, if you're Atlanta, is that you're going from a player in Cam Reddish that still has a few years left until you need to sign him to an extension to a player in Lonzo that would be a restricted free agent, in addition to having John Collins on the roster, who of course is famously a restricted free agent. So you could be going from a situation where you've still got some time on Cam Reddish, even if you're not fully confident that he's ever going to be a really good player, you have some time to figure that out. You don't have to commit money to him this offseason, to bringing in a player Lonzo that, yes, fits very well with Trae, and I'm shockingly intrigued by that combination, paying him and Collins, assuming he doesn't get moved before the deadline. And suddenly, in addition to the moves they made last offseason, Atlanta is a luxury tax team. A team that has been rebuilding for years now is suddenly in the luxury tax or close to it, and a projected tax team once Trae Young gets his massive extension here in a couple of years. So from a player standpoint, I really like it, but unless, and this would be shocking to me, unless they're sending John Collins somewhere else as a part of a Lonzo trade, I find it difficult to believe that they would actually make this move. As intriguing as it is, as cool as it would be for Reddish to swap teams and go to New Orleans, I think that's an interesting fit because I do think that they need help on the wings in terms of a two-way wing and what Reddish could potentially be, and Lonzo being a cool fit there in Atlanta. The free agency aspect of that and the cost of re-signing Lonzo and John Collins in the same offseason is probably prohibitive. That's what I'm thinking. Second to last now. Aaron Gordon is apparently a very, very popular player around the league right now. Here's why. Reportedly, the Rockets, in a possible Oladipo trade that we'll get to in a second, the Warriors, the Celtics, the Timberwolves, and the Trailblazers are all pursuing Aaron Gordon via trade. And it probably has to do with something we talked about last week, which is the idea that Aaron Gordon in a different environment, an environment that is not the, hey, Orlando really needs you to score a lot of the time version of Aaron Gordon, is simply not as good as what would happen if he was on a different roster where he's only asked to do the stuff that he's probably really good at, which is getting to the rim, which is, just kind of being all over the place defensively. And teams are intrigued by that possibility in addition to his age and what's a relatively reasonable contract, and an Orlando situation in which they should absolutely be looking to get rid of players like Aaron Gordon for assets. I would be cool with any of these 5 teams acquiring Aaron Gordon just to get him somewhere else to really kind of figure out how he fits. The Oubre swap to Golden State is interesting because I think Aaron Gordon could learn a lot of things from Draymond. And if the Magic are in a situation where they're like, yeah, we want to get value for Gordon, but we also want to dump some salary, that Oubre expiring starts to look a little bit better. So I don't know what's going to end up happening. I hope he gets moved. I think he's one of the more interesting pieces at the deadline this year because of what he could be in a different situation, but I'm interested in that. And the last step is kind of related to this. And it's basically that the Rockets are getting really creative with what they're potentially doing here with Victor Oladipo. And that could be related to an Aaron Gordon trade where Oladipo goes to a third team, Orlando sends Aaron Gordon to Houston. Essentially, the Rockets are becoming more and more comfortable with this idea that the Oladipo situation has gone really, really south really, really quickly, and that they might need to attach another player, a pick, in exchange for Oladipo to get some value back because this guy's as good as gone in the offseason. There's going to be a lot of videos made about how poor of a decision it was to make Oladipo part of the Harden trade in the first place, but this is the hand that they've dealt for themselves, and they need to figure it out. So what I would say is that given some of the reporting that's been coming out over the last few days is Oladipo is probably going to be moved, but it might not be an as traditional of a move as Oladipo for a young player in a pick or something like that. They're probably going to have to do something a little bit weirder than that, and maybe even give up some assets in order to get rid of Oladipo, which would be kind of a disaster. But if they're convinced he's gone for nothing anyway, might as well try and get something back. So keep an eye on that. So some really interesting rumors this week. As always, let me know what you guys have to say in the comment section down below about any rumors that you guys are seeing that you guys want me to talk about. And as always, we're doing our trade deadline special NBA Trade Machine tomorrow. That'll be the first video of the day tomorrow. NBA Trade Machine trade deadline special with as many different just random trades as we can come up with. I'm going to try and make it a pretty long video, and we'll go through a lot of trades as we're approaching the trade deadline now, just a few days away. But with all those things said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating. Make sure to check out more videos from me. The box is on screen. And yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.